You can fill your stomach and still feel empty, right? There's a kind of empty feeling that isn't physical. And we try to find ways to fill it, whether we use food, compulsive behaviours, other addictions, distractions, because the emptiness is frightening. It's a feeling of nothing there. It's this black chasm. It's hard to talk about the void because language doesn't quite reach it. If you are a deep thinker and a deep feeler, you probably just have a sense of what I'm talking about. It's deep and it's existential and it's right into the core of who are we and why are we even here? In 2010, I had brain surgery and I had a pretty rough recovery. I was in a lot of pain and they gave me morphine for the pain. And it's the only time I've had an opiate-based painkiller. And my experience was that the morphine didn't get rid of the pain. It did this strange thing where it just seemed to make me care less about it in that moment. So it made me more comfortable, but it didn't really do anything for the pain. And I think it's a similar thing when it comes to food or whatever behaviour you might do to try and deal with this existential void. Maybe you're in a full-blown existential crisis right now. If so, I'm hoping this video is going to be helpful. As I said, it's hard to talk about what the void is, but it's like an empty space, and we get quite scared of it. We are literally physically made up of mostly empty space. And when I use the word mostly, it's not really doing enough heavy lifting in that sentence. You might remember from class that we are made up of teeny tiny atoms. And inside each of your teeny tiny atoms is a teeny tiny nucleus. And it's the nucleus that we think of as solid material. And then there are electrons that are whizzing around this nucleus, which creates this electrical energy. Now, to try and conceptualize this from a size perspective, if your teeny tiny atom was a large cathedral, the nucleus would be the size of a grain of rice. Or better yet, the latest estimates in the physics world are that if you took all the 8 billion people on this planet and you just took the solid material that makes us up and put it all together, it would be the size of a sugar cube. And 8 billion people, actual solid material is the size of a sugar cube. So if we are literally empty space, then why do we feel solid? How can we even touch anything? Here's the kicker. At the atomic level, we've never touched a thing. Those electrons, that electrical charge that is moving around your nucleus, they repel one another. So when I pick up this flask and it feels solid, that is just electrons repelling one another. And sadly, it also means that I've never even touched my cats. But it would also explain why they are often repelled by me. So why am I talking about this in a video about the void? Well, at the structural level, we are space. We're empty space. But psychologically, we seem to have this great fear against this empty space. Now, if your nervous system is used to experiencing intensity, that spaciousness can feel like a threat. The other reason empty space feels so frightening is because it's nothing. And we're scared of nothing. We have these identities that we have constructed. These identities that we have constructed for ourselves as I'm wife, husband, partner, I'm accountant, teacher, psychotherapist, YouTuber. Most people find that their experience of the void, this empty feeling, comes up when they are unable to hold on to their concepts of their self. This is why this stuff can come up when we are in emotional distress, when we're full of self-doubt, when we doubt our worth. The void isn't shame. Shame is a dark place, don't get me wrong. When I'm talking about this existential void, I'm not talking about shame. But our reaction to it is often shame and fear. Because, well, if we're nothing, what do we do with that? Particularly in addiction models, they talk about this void, this feeling, as being a God-shaped hole that we try to fill with whatever we can. Now, I'm not here to declare whether that's the truth or not, but what we need is some kind of narrative, some kind of personal explanation for this experience. So a materialist could put it down to actually an experience of the emptiness that is real in ourselves, that is physical, that there is a physical space in ourselves, and our mind thinks that we're solid, and that somehow that experience of ourselves breaks through. There's a dissonance with the mind, and we experience distress. That would be a completely materialistic, physical-based potential explanation. And I actually, through my personal experience, think the part of us that gets the most scared about this void is our ego. It's our identity, the part that wants to cling on to ourselves as an individual who's very, very important. And if we're not very important because the universe is so big, then we fall into this hole of like a kind of death or a self-erasure. I listened to a series on Audible called The Dark Night of the Soul by Thomas More, who's also written a book called A Personal Spirituality. So he's not touting a belief system, but he's inviting people to construct their own. And he talks about having a life philosophy, which is what is it you believe life is about and your place in it. We have this philosophy about that. And even if you've made a decision that everything is meaningless, that is still a meaning. To be able to look at everything and go, my conclusion is that this is all meaningless, is still a meaning. Because it's a contrast. We can't have one without the other. We can't have meaninglessness unless we can make a meaning. But what Thomas More talks about, which really spoke to me, is that we need to find or develop our life philosophy that includes the darkness. Now, he isn't necessarily talking about the void, but it's like, what is our explanation when things feel terrible, when we're suffering, when we're in pain, or we see other people suffering or other people in pain? Because if your life philosophy is, I think life is just about being happy and finding ways to be happy, your life philosophy, your very sense of the meaning of life gets threatened when you're confronted with your own or other people's suffering. So the questions for you to be asking yourself about this experience that you have, this feeling, this existential emptiness, firstly is, why is it frightening? What's frightening about this feeling? And chances are the frightening thing is in the meaninglessness. Because feeling empty, if it's okay to be empty, why does that feel so terrible? There's something we're making it mean up here. Second question to ask yourself is, why do I think it shouldn't be here? Because this is where food steps in, right? You feel this emptiness. I don't like this feeling. I don't think I should be feeling it. Something's gone wrong if I'm feeling this. So I have to get rid of the feeling. That's when we're going to keep chasing outside of ourselves. We're going to keep trying to find things to fill this feeling, and they won't stack up. We see this with people who achieve enormous success and they still feel empty. I've been places where it have been in such beauty around me, and inside I've still felt empty. I'm not saying don't engage with the world, don't go out and have experiences and pursue things that maybe you want, but if you're hoping that that is the thing that's going to finally make you feel okay, finally make this feeling go away, you may be mistaken. And then the third question to ask yourself about this feeling is, what do you believe it says about you? As in the fact that this feeling is coming up and you're experiencing it in the moment, what does it mean? I think for me, when I was in this, I felt completely disconnected. I felt afraid. I felt different to everybody else. I othered myself. So it triggered all these feelings. And I thought that those feelings were the void. The void was just a void of horrible feelings. And it was like, no, the void is this neutral thing. But it's a reaction to an experience of spaciousness outside of our ego self-identifiedness. I think it's so uncomfortable because it brings up the question, who am I? If I'm not striving, who am I? If I'm not achieving, who am I? If I'm not making myself invaluable to other people or managing how other people think about me, who am I? And actually at the physical level, at the substance level, if we're pretty much nothing, we need to figure out what that means for us. I mean, I can offer what it means for me. I don't know if it's actually helpful because I'm not here trying to make out like I've found out the answer to something and I'm going to share it with you. I can only talk from my personal experience of what I've learned about myself. Like, spiritually and from an ego perspective. And actually for me to go into that void place and to rest there and to disconnect from labels, identity, the things that really matter to me from my human perspective, actually going into the void is a place where I go to rest. And it's a place that I recharge, and it's a place where I get a sense of contact with something greater than myself. Now that could be God to you, it could be nature. A big part of my spiritual connection, I would say, is people. I love people and I see the divine in people all the time. I was walking down the street just here yesterday, and as I was walking down the street, these two women came out of the house to my right, and one of the women were getting into the car to leave. I feel emotional just thinking about it. One of the women got in the car to leave, and the other one said to her, "Good luck, and I love you." And I just thought, like, my heart just swelled. Like, the love and care that human beings can show one another is such a beautiful thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I know human beings can do the very worst things to each other as well. And here's my philosophy on that. How we feel about ourselves, that pain that we feel, whether it's emotional pain, whether it's terror, this void, the fear of being, this fear of being not good enough is often the fear of the void, the fear that we're nothing. But if we start from a perspective of we're nothing and that's okay, the fear can diminish. Anyway, when we have this fear, this thing inside of us that we are trying to avoid, one of two things happens to that. One, we internalize it. So we use food, we use other kind of distractions or compulsive behaviours to cope with that. Or two, we externalize. And that means we take out our own emotional pain on other people. We try and get it out of us and we put it onto somebody else through mistreatment. And then we think those of us that internalize, we are far better people than those who externalize and take it out on others, right? Because at least we have the decency to only take it out on ourselves. But there's also a piece of that with, why is it okay to mistreat yourself? Why do you think it makes you a nicer person to mistreat yourself instead of somebody else? You are just as important and unimportant as the next thing, because we live in this world of duality, right? We have opposites. That's why we can't label something as meaningless unless meaning also exists. But what the void, what empty space, being able to actually psychologically move into that empty space does, is it gives you the experience of non-dualism, where nothing is true and everything is true. And now I'm thinking I've gone way off piste with this video. I didn't think I was going to end up here. I had a whole plan and I've gone somewhere else. But I'm okay with it. It's things for me that just have the ring of truth. I'm not trying to push that onto anybody else, but I am just putting it out there in case it resonates and in case it helps. And so, if you want to work with me, I've got some stuff below. I won't take up your time by telling you about it in the video. You can check out the links below. And let me know your thoughts on this video, your experience, how this stuff lands with you, how you understand the void. And I hope it was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.